prior to the creation of this organization, this was founded in Stella Adler Studio of Acting was founded in 1949. I think they studied in mid-40s and maybe even the early 40s at the New School. And but then he was in a play called A Flag Is Born. Do you know about that? Oh, and that's an aspect of Stella's life and work that is, I would think, relevant, which is that the group theater disbanded in 41, and in 43 she joined something called the Bergson Group. Do you know about the Bergson Group?
A little bit.
Yeah, which was created by Peter Bergson, aka it was really Hillel Cook, aka Peter Bergson, but a man who was, I think, a Polish Jew that began trying to lobby both the British government and then the U.S. government to create a Jewish battalion to fight in World War II. And then there was an article, I think, buried on page 11 of the New York Times, saying that, reporting that 2 million Jews had been exterminated. And at that point, he, in Europe, in World War II, and so at that point he changed his mission, which was to lobby the Roosevelt administration to save the Jews of Europe. And Stella joined that committee, and which I think is relevant to, that she was a political animal, and her technique operates that way too. There's a social activist part of it, as there was in Yiddish theater and in the group. It wasn't art for art's sake. It was art for the sake of provoking, of edifying, uplifting, provoking, providing leadership to the people of the community, inspiring, and so on, inspiring activism, activity. So she joined the Bergson Group, and she was on the executive committee of that. And the Bergson Group, she did a number of, they utilized actors in a kind of innovative way, the way that it exists much more today, as I understand it, than then. But anyway, the guy who wrote Gone with the Wind, Ben Hecht. Ben Hecht wrote a play called A Flag Is Born, this was after the war was over. So the Bergson Group was then trying to raise money for the creation of the State of Israel, but also to help the DPs, the displaced persons. And so Ben Hecht wrote A Flag Is Born, and my Uncle Luther directed it, and my cousin Celia Adler, was it Celia or Cecilia? Celia Adler was in it, and Brando was in it. It was his first thing he did on Broadway. And Paul Muni was in it, and that's something I remember hearing my whole life, was that my mother told me that Marlon's favorite actor was Paul Muni, and when he died, when Brando died, Sean Penn went on the Charlie Rose show, and Charlie Rose said, why is acting different after Marlon Brando than it was before? And Sean Penn, the first thing he said was, Marlon would have said, why is acting different after Paul Muni than it was before? So there was lots of influence. And he might have said after Stella Adler, and he did in many places. He wrote and spoke with great pride about Stella as his teacher.